Hey there, welcome back to Unfiltered Perspectives. I'm Tara.
I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Leslie.
Today, we are going to be talking about the weight of expectations and how we navigate the pressures that we place on ourselves and the pressure that comes from society. How do we do this without losing sight of who we are and what it is that we want? So, we're going to talk about how we break free from these unhealthy expectations, how we redefine success on our own terms and find peace in being true to who we are. This is Unfiltered Perspectives, where real talk leads to real growth and every perspective is valued.
Thanks, Tara.
So, how do societal expectations define your idea of success or determine your idea of success, if at all?
I would love to say that I am a person who, marches to my own drum, who lives life by my own rules, who sets my own expectations. And the truth is, I'm just always measuring myself and frankly being measured by other people, by external expectations of my job, of my personhood, of how I should be in relationship. It can be hard for me to figure out which of those matter and which of those I need to let go of.
Yeah. What about you, Leslie? How do societal expectations impact the way you define success and, I guess, happiness in your life?
I'm trying to put into words how to answer this question. I think I put more pressure on myself. For lack of a better word, I think we do a comparison. We look at our lives next to our siblings or our coworkers or whomever it is in our lives, and we compare to that next person that may be our age, and we look at our successes next to theirs, where they are in their career, or if they're single or married, and you kind of feel like, well, we're the same age. Why am I not in the same place where they are in their life and their career? If they're parents, or you know what I mean? I think I put more pressure on myself, more so than society putting that pressure on me. I weigh my success. Unfortunately, I'm not good at navigating it because I still do it even at the age I am now. I look at people my own age and I question why I have not succeeded in some areas or accomplished some things in certain areas as people, my own age category, in my own age group. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did.
How about you, Tara?
So I don't think that I let societal expectations impact my definition of success. And I don't know if it's always been that way. Well, actually, I do know that it has not always been that way because once upon a time, I would feel like a failure or feel that other people thought that I was a failure because I set out on a particular career path or I had a particular idea of what it was that I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And lifed and my desires changed.
Mm-hmm.
Not just my desires, but what I felt it means to be a success changed with maturity,
Mm-hmm.
with experiences. And so I don't really care anymore if people say, well, you went to law school and you're not practicing law. What about all that money you've spent or all that education you have? You're so intelligent and what are you doing? And my answer is I'm doing what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing what brings satisfaction to my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and like I said, that has not always been the case, but now I can firmly say that I consider myself a success because I'm doing the things that I want to do that bring me joy, but that also I believe adds to my community, adds to my society. It, I'm just so, I'm just so pleased with where I am
Mm-hmm.
psychologically and emotionally in my life. So,
Yeah, you make a good point because although I am not where I was a few years ago in terms of being happy with what I'm doing and where I'm contributing to, like you said, in your community and in society. I want to be able to do more and give more and be more. And I'm not quite there yet. So it has nothing to do with, like you said, you went to law school and you spent money on, your education and all of that. But at the end of the day, you are happy now with what you're doing and where you're contributing. And I have some areas that I'm happy in, but there are still areas where I'm pursuing where I haven't quite gotten there yet. And it seems like it's taking a long time for me to get there. So I'm not 100% fulfilled. That's how I measure the success. And I feel like we've had this conversation on a previous podcast, but that's how I measure the success. So I'm still striving to get there.
Hmm. And what I like about what you said is you said yet. You said yet.
Yeah.
So you're striving and you're still striving. You're not giving up. And so I don't get the sense that because you're still on that path that you think of yourself as a failure. You're just on your way to ultimate success.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct. Because there was a time, like you also said, you felt like a failure. I
Mhm.
felt like a failure, but I'm only failing if I give up, which I will not do. We're on a prayer call for the listeners and Tara and I, and something was said this morning about it taking longer than we expect sometimes. It takes a long time sometimes to get to that end, and I texted you in the background and said, he's in my business this morning. And I don't know if you saw it. But yeah, some things that I'm trying to do are taking way longer than I wanted or that I expected. And I always come back to it. I always come back to it because I refuse to give up my dream, my goals, my desires to get to the place where I want to be. That place that's success for me. And these are my own expectations, not societal expectations, but my expectations for myself and what's going to be success for me.
So, how will you know that you've reached ultimate success?
There are certain things for me, and it's not, you know what, it's not attached to money. It's not attached to money, although I have business ideas and things of that nature. When they are flowing like I want them to flow, and I'm giving to like you said, to the community like I want to, and I'm pouring into people and I'm speaking to the groups of people that I want to speak to, and I'm being fulfilled that way, that's going to bring me joy. That's going to bring me success, getting those things accomplished, speaking to people about mental health and speaking to young women, and also, like I said, getting my businesses up and going, and not necessarily for the monetary reward, but that's of course why we go into business, but also just getting the things that I'm producing, just getting it out there. That's for me.
I guess then the question is, can you think of any ways that we can, or any practical ways, I guess, that we can find relief or to release ourselves from societal expectations or from not just society, but from others, other people's expectations?
Well, I'm curious about sort of where they're coming from, and to what extent are we talking about societal expectations, and to what extent are we talking about self expectations? But
Hmm.
I think I heard both of you saying that you're less guided by society's expectations of you,
Mm-hmm.
your own expectations of yourself. I mean, I'm curious, Tara, when you mentioned some of the judgment around not using your law degree, is that a thing that people actually said to you, or was that just your own self-talk?
No, those are things that people have actually said to me.
Wow.
Which, if you hear it enough, you begin to internalize that, and you're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't I? Am I a loser because I haven't done this, or am I a loser because I've stepped away from this to do something that other people may not find as challenging, I guess to say, or that some people may not feel contributes in a way that using that education, that degree can do. Because honestly, the things that I'm doing now, I'm finding fulfillment because it is increasing my relationship with God. And I'm finding fulfillment because I feel that I'm doing something that helps other people
Right.
from the inside out. If
Mhm.
that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
And you really just answered your own question, because that's how you get away from the societal pressures. You find yourself and you find what brings you joy. You find what makes you happy and what fulfills you, and not what other people think you should be doing. You
Right.
you answered your question.
Mhm. Well, I answered my question for myself, but is
For
that the same
yourself.
answer that everyone else has?
But that's what I was going to say. You find yourself and you find what makes you happy. Find your why.
Mhm.
Everybody's why may be different, but finding your why and finding your purpose and what fulfills you and makes you happy is the answer.
I hear you. And I don't know. I mean, I'm still happy in my work, joyful in my work. So the work that I am called to do. And even in that work, though, there are often times when I wonder, am I doing it well enough? Am I doing it as well as some of my colleagues? Am I, even though I'm maybe working as hard as I can, am I actually performing as well as I could be? And I don't know if that's a societal pressure or if that's an internal pressure.
I was getting ready to say that's a you thing. That's that self expectation.
Yeah, because you're comparing yourself to your colleagues and feeling that you don't necessarily measure up. Other people looking in are just impressed with who you are
Who you are. Mm-hmm.
and the
Yeah.
things that you do, not in comparison to anyone else, but the fact that you are getting out there and you are doing these things and bringing whatever what those
What?
things that you bring
Yeah.
to the table, to people's lives.
That's probably true. But then I also think about, now this is going to be all about why Kimberly feels terrible about her life. I don't feel terrible about my life, but there are other kinds of external measures, right? And so I think about honestly, the big external measure for me is finances. And I do think the the work that I do is not valued as much as other work, right? So people think that I'm doing a great job. That's excellent. People are really impressed by what I do. That's excellent. But that doesn't correspond to like financial gain. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does make sense. And so, what for your answer, for me, success isn't based on financial gain. Success is based on feeling that I am putting a positive energy or whatever out into the world. But for you, it seems like that's not your focus of success. Yours is financial.
Not a bad thing. It's just a different thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not my only focus of success. I recognize it as a measure of value. And when I recognize it as a measure of value.
Mhm.
And so when I don't have it, when I'm not rewarded in that way, it feels as if the work that I do is not valued as well.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that, but I think, like as you said, I think that is an internal thing. It all depends, I guess, like we said before, on what stick you're using to measure. There are plenty of people whose their fulfillment comes from, let's say, childcare, or whose fulfillment comes from, you know, I don't know, being able to serve meals to people. They don't make a lot of money necessarily,
Right.
but they still feel successful in their life because this is what they want to do and they're doing it well. And for them, money is not, maybe I should not set your focus, but is not the stick by which they measure. So that's the difference. Yours is that, or one of yours is that, but that's not everybody. And for those of us who look at what you're doing, I have no idea how much money you make. Your value, the value of what you do to me is not based on the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So I value you. I value what you are to this world.
Yay.
So, how can we stay true to our own values and our own identity while still trying to fulfill certain responsibilities or roles that are expected of us? And I guess in order to answer that question, you have to figure out, when we're talking about expectations, whose expectations are we talking about? Are we talking about like the ones that we have for ourselves? Are we talking about what our family, what they expect? Are we talking about what some other people out there might be expecting? Are we talking about what it is that, for me, what it is that God expects of me?
And I guess it depends on your role. It depends on your role because you have certain expectations of your children as a parent. You have certain expectations from your employer. You have certain expectations from your spouse. Do we have to fulfill the expectations of society? Not necessarily. So I really just think it depends on your role.
Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." And this particular verse, I think it supports resisting societal pressures,
Mm-hmm.
resisting societal expectations, and focusing on God's will for my life. Well, I'm going to speak for myself because other people may not interpret that way, but for my life. And that helps me to make sure that what it is I deem as successful aligns with, staying true
Mm-hmm.
to my own values,
Mm-hmm.
staying true, making sure that my actions, my behaviors, my definitions of success, my definitions of value, my definitions of worth all coincide.
That makes sense.
I mean, I have a particular practice for staying grounded in my own self. They're really two, but they often happen at the same time. I have what is intended to be a daily journaling practice, and it's an app that I use on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it asks me what I'm grateful for, what I'm intending to do that day to make it great. I don't know if great is the word that it uses. There are a few morning prompts. It'll ask the gratitude prompt is a morning prompt. My intention for the day is a morning prompt. And I think it asks me for an affirmation. And the evening reflection, I think, asks for a highlight of the day and a learning from the day. But I often do it in the morning. My other practice is to walk to the ocean, which just gives me some perspective on my life. I can reflect on what I do, but it also, I mean, in front of the vastness of the ocean, it just really gives me some perspective on not necessarily the smallness of my problems, but it just reminds me of my place in the grandness of the world.
Mm.
Which gives some perspective to my sense of success or not, or my sense of how I'm using my time on this earth.
Tara, I was listening to you when you were talking about the scripture, and just the bottom line to me is just being true to yourself. When you know what makes you happy and what gives you a sense of peace and success, and giving back to, to the world, that's most important. Who cannot, when you're giving back, when you're pouring into people, how can that not be fulfilling?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay, so here's another way that I actually measure success. I used to, in my 20s, I used to have a 1-year plan. Like every year, I would review these a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, and a 10-year plan. And I would sort of be like moving myself along that path. I stopped that in my 20s, so I don't measure towards goals in that way, but I do on a more daily basis measure how I spent my day or reflect on how I spent my day.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, and if I have done at least some of the things that I had hoped to do, if I have done things that I feel proud of or useful. So not like 1, 3, 5-year plans, no 10-year plan, no like big picture goals that I'm checking on a list, but a more small kind of reflection at the end of a day or the end of a week to see if I feel good about how I've used my time.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay.
And when you use that, like, how do you find it more positive than negative? Like you talked about like not making money and stuff like that. But if you use that, what you just said about reflecting on how you spent your time, does that change how you feel about your success right now?
I mean, sometimes I I did a project over the weekend that at the end of it, I thought, well, that certainly could have been better. So Saturday, I did this project. At the end of it, I thought that certainly could have been better. And then Sunday, unprompted, two people reflected back that they actually thought it was great. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm not sort of all of the time measuring my success by money. And when I think about my financial situation, it doesn't match how I feel about the success of my life, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Because I imagine that with the job that you do and the calling that is on your heart, when you, even though you feel like, certain things weren't perfect or as well as good as you wish they had been, when you get the feedback that these people that you are interacting with and that you're pouring into, they felt that you did amazing and that it touched them, it reached them, then that must view things differently because you're reaching the audience and doing the things that you've been pulled to do, you know?
Yeah. So no, I generally know that I'm doing good work, and that is a combination of both, honestly, though, internal expectation and external expectation. I work for and with people, and so part of my job is to meet that expectation, right? I mean,
Is it, I guess the question is that not fulfilling enough to know that you've done an amazing job? Is that not enough?
I think the thing that's sort of bugging me about what we've said so far is there just feels like an implicit, like an assumption that meeting societal expectations is a bad thing, or feeling the pressure of societal expectations is a bad thing. And I think as I think about this more, that's maybe where I'm getting stuck, because I think that we're like social people, and for a lot of good reasons, like societal expectations and sometimes even societal pressures spur us along, encourage us to good work, encourage us to be good, like, citizens. And so I don't necessarily think that societal expectations are a bad thing or a thing that we need to be avoiding.
Yeah. To that point, I don't think that societal expectations are per se bad. What the problem I have is when those expectations don't meet with what or don't align with what it is that I feel is
Right.
important, or when those expectations work not to encourage us or to spur us on, but to diminish us and to stomp us down.
Right.
That's the difference for me.
Mhm. Mhm. I hear that. I think mostly when I think of the way that societal external expectations and pressures work in hmm, mostly, I think this is true. Mostly the way that I think about how external pressures work in my own life. They push me to work harder, maybe harder than I actually need to.
So
And
then
I think they push me to work a
with
better person.
again, that's you putting pressure and high expectations on yourself.
So how do we make the distinction though between society and ourselves and like internal? How do you know if it's like your own internal pressure versus
Based on your
external?
based on, and Tara, correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, I think that would be based on the need that you're trying to fulfill.
What do you mean?
What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Who is it that you're trying to please? What need are you trying to meet? How do you need to be fulfilled?
Hmm.
Again, like Tara and I both said, like Tara said, giving back to society. What is your ultimate goal? And how can you accomplish it? Do you need to go above and beyond because it's the societal expectation? Do you need to go above and beyond like you're doing? Can you meet that need and fulfill that goal without doing the extra that you're doing?
I am not always sure, actually. But then I also always tell myself there's always going to be more work. I'm never going to be actually finished. And so, you do what you can and be done with it. Start again tomorrow.
Are you going above and beyond to meet the societal expectations in the hopes that you will be compensated in the way that you're looking to be?
Hmm. Not necessarily. I mean, my pay is what it is. I don't like. Oh, I see. Oh, so maybe. I don't know. I mean,
Something to think about.
I just work hard because I want to do the best job, and there's so much work to be done. There's always something more to do, or
But is there always something more to do because you really want to do it or because you have to prove that you can?
right. No, it's less about proving that I can at this point and more about because I want it to be done.
Are you more
Because I want
fulfilled?
it to be done.
Are you more fulfilled and happy with yourself when you do more?
Probably, sure.
If you
That
have,
sounds like, that sounds like I'm questioning.
yeah,
I think a lot about self-fulfillment.
you should.
I think that's another thing I'm sort of realizing in this conversation.
You should be,
And
and that's how you navigate.
I'm just a worker bee.
But what are you working for, though?
I don't know, big picture, small picture.
Either, both.
I just do a lot of work for this congregation and a lot of work for this faith. I volunteer in a lot of different places because I want us to have strong institutions, because I want to create spaces for other people to be able to live their faith more fully. That's mostly what I'm working for.
Question, because I don't have a career, I have a job, and it's very different. Okay, if both of you were getting half of the money, the half of the income, half of the pay for what you do now, would you still do it?
I would.
I probably would because they really should be paying me at least a quarter more than they do.
But I'm saying if you only got half of what you got now, would you still do it?
Probably. But I think I would make a distinction between wealth and financial security.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, I don't think I'm trying to be wealthy. I would just not like to be stressed about money. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as we wrap up, remember that for some of us, true success isn't measured by wealth or external approval, but by living a life of purpose and fulfillment. When we let go of social pressures and focus on what matters, such as our values, our relationships, and personal growth, we do have a way of finding freedom. You don't have to chase what others define as success. Instead, align your life with what brings you joy and what brings you meaning and purpose. Thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Perspectives. Be sure to look for a new episode on Thursday mornings. And don't forget to share, rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Find us on Facebook and YouTube at Unfiltered Perspectives and Instagram at Unfiltered Perspectives IG.
We look forward to hearing the comments and questions, and we'll see you back here next time. Thanks for listening.